Welcome to Radical Personal Finance, a show dedicated to providing you with the knowledge, skills, insight, and encouragement you need to live a rich and meaningful life now while building a plan for financial freedom in 10 years or less. My name is Joshua. I'm your host, and today is Friday, January 9, 2026. And on this Friday, as we do on any Friday in which I can arrange a microphone and a phone line and all that stuff, we do a live Q&A. You call in, talk about anything you want, ask any questions that you want, discuss anything that you are thinking about. To gain access to one of these Friday shows, you can do that by becoming a patron of the show. Go to patreon.com/radicalpersonalfinance, patreon.com/radicalpersonalfinance. That will gain access for you to one of these Friday Q&A shows. We begin with Jordan in New York. Jordan, welcome to the show. How can I serve you today?
Hey, thank you. It's good to talk to you. I wanted to ask about your acquisition of the Life of Fred math company and how it's going, and anything you want to share about sort of the negotiation and getting the company as well.
How's that for a softball? That was very kind of you. Um, it has been an adventure, and it's been an exciting adventure because it's something that is different. But it's been an adventure. Let me consider what I want to share. I don't think I want to share anything publicly at this point in time regarding the acquisition of Fred. I will say that I have got some good stories, and I will share them in a different context or in the future, but I'm not ready to share them now. On the
Sounds
whole,
good.
yeah, there's some very fun, very radical aspects to it that are fun. So I want to share with them, but I can't quite I can't do that yet. So we will see about the future.
All right.
On the whole, I will say I really enjoyed the process of purchasing Fred. It's something, any longtime listener here at Radical Personal Finance knows that I have grown and changed throughout this entire journey. And I started in the early days of the podcast having some ideas about things that I wanted to do, things I thought I should do, things I could do, but I didn't know how to do them. I was pretty young when I started Radical Personal Finance. I was 26 and 27, something like that. And I was I'm a novice in a lot of things. And so I saw some glimmers of light of kind of a direction I wanted to go, but I didn't know how to get there because a lot of my pathway has been swimming upstream. And I actually do have planned, and Radical Personal Finance has been a part of that. I won't talk about Radical Personal Finance too much here because I'm planning a standalone podcast on that in the next couple of weeks. Now we'll see if I get it done, but I'm standing up. I'll share the story of RPF. It's kind of the third part of this 3-part series where I talked about I bought a business, which is Fred. I'm starting a business, which is Echolingo. And the question is, what do I do with RPF? And I'll share that separately in a podcast because it deserves its own treatment, especially for the community that's been here with me for the whole ride. But along the way with Radical Personal Finance, I've had a couple of just kind of strong convictions. The first conviction was that I'm not the best starter as in terms of an entrepreneur, but I think I'm a good grower. And starting a company from nothing is different than growing a company that exists. And I've come to realize that I think those are different skill sets. And I don't think I'm a very good starter, but I think I can be a grower. Now, I'm not blind to the obvious truth that I'm trying to start another company. So this grand ideology, I don't know what happens to it in the long run. I'm very aware of the fact that I'm doing a startup. But the point is that with many of my frustrations, I've realized, well, is this my incompetence or am I just in the wrong fit? So I think the growing model makes a lot of sense. The other thing that I have become convinced of is that most of the money that can be made is in private business. And that was a theme for a decade. I've never, from the very beginning, I've said that, I've believed it, that you're going to make a lot more money with a business that you own and operate if you're successful than you will by investing into more passive investments, such as mutual funds, ETFs, etc. But just because you know that doesn't mean you know how to go to the next step. And so, through the various changes of my life, I was several years hindered on pursuing this pathway that I knew I was going to go. So, when I finally found the Fred opportunity, it kind of fell in my lap at a time that I was looking for it. I was looking for something like it, and it fell in my lap. And all of a sudden, I realized, hey, this could work out. And so I went through the process. I messed everything up. Like I did so many dumb things. I performed so many blunders because it's the first business I ever bought. But on the end of it, I got the deal done, and it was actually fun. Like I enjoyed it. And so I can see that, as I said before, I can see that, like, hey, that was really fun. I enjoyed that. I'd like to do that more, but I'd like to do it a lot better. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to fix all of the things I've done poorly and not get out over the tip of my skis and just do more things poorly, because in many ways, the signature of my life over the past years has been doing way too many things poorly. And I don't like that. I don't sleep well at night with that reputation, with that honest evaluation. And I don't like that. So I'm trying to fix everything and fix my messes and do that. So with Fred, uh, I have been working on a grand turnaround plan, but I have intentionally been taking it slowly because my mantra with it is basically don't screw it up. When you buy an existing business, especially something that is unique, I believe that my responsibility is just not to screw it up, not to mess it up. And there's a whole bunch of things with the brand that I think that if they are poorly done, might wind up torpedoing the business. And so I'll just give a simple example, right? Anybody who's been to lifeoffred.com, you can just chuckle at the website. And so you say, this website here is ridiculous. It was published, it's 20 years ago in Dreamweaver. And yet I know the financials of the company, and that website has made a lot of money. And so I am careful with things. And so I could have wiped it out and immediately replaced it with some shiny new fancy website. But there's kind of a slickness to that where I don't really wish to be known as the guy who has just come in and put in some slick fancy website and is destroying Fred, right? I'm the steward of Fred, so I need to keep things going. And Stan Schmidt is a genius, and he's also made a lot of money with Fred. And so I don't far more money than I've ever made in my life. And so I don't point my fingers at people who are geniuses just because I see things differently. And so I've been fixing a bunch of things, modernizing a bunch of things behind the scenes, and then I'm been slow walking some of the public facing changes. And so Fred has been great. I'm optimistic about it. Sales are up and down, sometimes good, sometimes bad. We will see about what things go for. Again, there's private details that I'm not willing to share in public about what that is. Time will tell. But I'm excited about it. What I am excited about with regard to Fred is that Fred is, for me, it starts to fill in my portfolio. And so the change for me from a decade ago, my financial plan was basically a financial independence or retire early plan. That was the goal, to just make as much money as fast as I can, spend as little as I can so that I can save as much as I can so I can retire on 4%. That was the goal. As that goal as the polish has come off of that goal, and most of my attention has turned to never retiring and building something bigger and building something that is collaborative. I have tried to say, okay, what do I need? And what I needed and need to make that happen is I need a business that has stable cash flow. And Radical Personal Finance has never had stable cash flow. I'll share those details another time. and other things that I'm interested in do not have stable cash flow, but I have needed a business with stable cash flow. And so Fred is that. And so I hope that Fred is always a part of my family's life. It's part of our legacy because I think it's really special. And I'm going to work hard to grow it. I have a lot of kind of expansion plans. I think there are a lot of things that I believe I can grow the company substantially, and I'm working hard on that. But I'm intentionally trying to exercise a bit of restraint and do the right things first, and basically build on a stable foundation. So on the whole, it's been good. The biggest problem that I have right now is just that I am dramatically overcommitted, and so I'm trying to solve that because I never intended to wind up running three businesses at the same time. I That was kind of an accidental occurrence. And so I'm overcommitted and overstretched. And everything in my life, like a movie scene where, a ship commander is pushing the engine to the limit and it's like vibrating and then the screws are coming out and it's like, we can get. That's basically my life right now is that
Yeah.
the throttle is on 110% and everything's vibrating and the screws are coming out. And if I can't figure it out within a few months, then the whole engine's going to blow up. I think I've got about 3 months and I can kind of pull back from 110% to 92%. But that pathway is really hard because it's requiring me to learn skills that I've never learned and to do things I've never done. So that I'm committed to it. I'm excited. I enjoy being committed. I enjoy doing the hard work. It feels like I'm engaged in life instead of being on autopilot for a long time. And that's what's exciting to me. I've spent a lot of my life over the last years in a place where my capacity was not the limiting factor. My opportunities were, and I was running at, like, I would say, less than half of my capacity. And I know my capacity, and I know that, and that doesn't feel good, right? There's been a lot of days where I go to sleep at night just frustrated because I'm just not at capacity. I'm no longer in that place right now. My capacity is the limiting factor, and my an opportunity is not. So I'm working to change and adjust my capacity and build new platforms. And that's exciting, but it's also really hard. And I say that because I'm at a stage in life and a phase in life in which I would like to feel confident. I would like to feel like I'm doing a really good job. And when you're thrust in over your capacity and I'm dropping balls, and that's really annoying to me. And, but honesty compels me to say, well, that means I'm growing. And so I'm excited about where I'm going to be a year and 5 years from now, but it has been pretty intense the last few months. So I don't know. Did I answer your question? I tried to be cagey about a few details, but answer it forthrightly. Although that is forthright, as long as I just protect a few of the details.
Yeah, of course. I would understand whatever discretion you wanted to use there. It sounds great. I forget which podcast it was recently. You talked about essentially that being sort of at the edge of your capacity, and I hear you on that. It's a good feeling in a lot of ways and overwhelming, and you kind of think, I wish this would never end. But at the same time, when you aren't there, it feels pretty terrible. It feels, or at least it quickly feels terrible, and you wish you were back in that really challenged state. So anyway, I think that's great. I wish you the best with everything you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And for those of you, this is an opportune time for me to fulfill my New Year's resolution, which is to advertise my stuff. If you have never if you haven't heard about Fred, if you haven't purchased any Fred books, you can go to lifeoffred.com, read about them. Life of Fred is a math and science curriculum that was built over 2 decades by a genius named Stan Schmidt, who basically sat down and wrote a story in which the protagonist of the story needs every single math concept from kindergarten to college all the way through. And these books have transformed thousands and thousands of young people from math haters to math lovers, and from math incompetence to math competence. And so I want to see a set of Fred books on every bookshelf in America and the world. And so that's my vision, because we are living in a day and age in which we need increasing levels of math competence. And if we can continue to build those levels of math competence systematically, then we will be much better off. And I think Fred is a valuable tool. Lifeoffred.com if you are interested in that. We go to Sammy in Phoenix. Welcome to the show. How can I serve you today? Sammy. My screen said Sammy Sosa. Man, Sammy Sosa was going to be a great call. Neil, welcome. Neil, welcome. How can I serve you today?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can hear you well. Go ahead, sir.
Good. Hey, how are you? We met at the Panama conference a couple of
Ah,
years ago.
excellent.
I was there. Yeah. My question for you is think about. So I moved recently with my wife to New Zealand. We retired from the U.S.
So you didn't get my
and I'm
Christmas
trying to
card
get
that I
some
sent
sense.
you. I
No,
sleuthed you out and sent you a Christmas card. And I
did
did,
you really?
I did, yeah. But I sent it to a California address, and I had to work really hard on my OSINT to find your address. So please an email afterwards with your New Zealand address, and I'll send it to you.
I will. I will do that.
All right, go ahead.
So my question is how much money I should be converting over to New Zealand currency, a way to think about that. So we bought a car, we bought a house, certainly had to transfer money over for that. Um, and we're going to be doing some renovations on the house and also a transfer money from that. But, you know, uh, how much kind of I want to be worried about currency, changes in currency prices. Most of the investments are in the U.S. stock market. Um, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on how to think about that?
I do. Do you intend to be in New Zealand for as far as you can see into the future as your primary residence?
That's our current plan. Yes.
Okay. Congratulations. That's really cool.
Oh,
I
thanks.
love it. And so what Neil has said is that a few years ago, if longtime people remember that I co-hosted a trip in Panama on with Mikkel Thorup, and we co-hosted a Panama investment tour, and Neil came on that trip. And that trip was important in my life, and there has been a group of people from the RPF community who came from that trip, and we have all become good friends since then. And that trip was important to me because it showed me that if I would just engage more and focus on making opportunities for connections and making friendships, that I will get what I need out of radical personal finance, which is not just me talking to a microphone, but real connections with real people. And so obviously, Neil, you were thinking about internationalization at the time, and you've settled not on Panama but on New Zealand, which is really cool. So that's just a bit of background. To answer the question, I would say the answers are, I have three good models that I would apply to that. The first model that I would apply is the number of years model. And so in investing, you know very well that if we were talking about something like stock market investments, fluctuating investments, we would pivot to a perspective where we would say, don't invest money that you're going to need in the next 5 years. We would say, if you're going to need the money in the next 5 years, don't put it in the stock market, put it into something that's more stable. And the idea is that if you're more than 5 years out, and let's say you've got a college tuition bill coming up 8 years from now, and the markets are running up, and you've doubled up your portfolio, well, then you can go ahead and jump out of that portfolio and sell and move to cash so that you have the money to pay the college tuition. Whereas if the markets are down and, it's 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, there's a pretty good chance that within 5 years, you're going to be able to, the markets are probably going to come back as long as you're paying attention to it. Now, that aphorism, that truth that we use, winds up turning into uh, 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 something where people don't always follow through like they should, but it still is true. I think the same logic applies to currency risk, that if you have a significant amount of money that you're going to need in New Zealand dollars that is currently in US dollars, then you take a good look at the exchange rate. You try to figure out, is this a favorable time? And if it seems like it's a generally favorable time, then you go ahead and you convert the money that you're going to need for a number of years that makes sense to you. I think that number of years is probably going to be somewhere between 2 years and 5 years. So if you, I would want to have always at least 2 years of living expenses in the New Zealand dollar, in, rather than in US dollars. And if you're going to have large lump sum expenses to get the house just right, purchase things, then you're going to want to have bigger numbers. So you would pick an amount of time, and I would try to compare the historical fluctuations on the exchange rates between New Zealand dollars and US dollars, and try to just say, like, when the rates go against me, how long do they go against me? And I'm guessing 2 to 5 years is the right amount of time. That would be the first model. The second model, I think, would be the percentage model. And the percentage model is imprecise, but it comes down to, I think it's true, where, the 80-20. If I know that I'm going to be living in New Zealand, then I might choose to say, well, I want to have 20% of my money in New Zealand dollars. Now, there's no, like, this doesn't answer the question, because why not 80% in New Zealand dollars and 20% in US dollars? That's what many New Zealanders might do, right? If you were a born and raised native New Zealander and all of your money were in New Zealand, I would say 80% New Zealand dollars and 20% in US dollars. In your situation, you might flip on the backside. But choosing a percentage that makes sense based upon the overall structure of your portfolio would be the other way to approach it, and try to always keep that. The third pathway would just be to say, like, what would be the actual conduit or pathway out? And so I think if you're an American citizen who has most of his money in most of his investments in US dollars, I think you're going to keep 80% of that, but you're going to keep 80% of that in US dollars, but you're also going to have a pathway to where you can move from US dollars to New Zealand dollars as is available. And so you might think about, well, if all of a sudden the US dollar started to collapse, but the New Zealand dollar is strong, then could I sell all my stocks, and what would be the implications of that? But just due to the thorny nature of all of the tax obligations, everything like that, you're not going to wind up doing that unless you're just convinced that the US dollar is going to fall apart. So those would be the three models that I would use. Number one is simply choose a number of years that make sense to you. Number two is choose a percentage that makes sense to you. Number three, have a pathway. I guess we could talk about, US dollar versus other things. That's quite speculative. I don't think the US dollar is going to fall apart. I wouldn't want 100% of my money in US dollars, but I don't think the US dollar is likely to fall apart. I think you'll be pretty happy with the US dollar if you reflect on the next couple of decades. I'm pretty convinced at this point it's the American century. So I think having a 20% escape valve or something like that is better than having an 80%, but your own predictions may be different, of course.
Well, I appreciate there are a couple of things I like about that. One, the percentage approach, and somehow, yeah, right, 20% seems kind of about right. And also the couple of years of buffer. And as I'm thinking of that, I guess I'm trying to figure out kind of what are my New Zealand expenses versus what expenses might not necessarily be denominated in New Zealand dollars. So, we travel back to the US a couple times a year. No reason that's necessarily needs to be New Zealand dollar denominated for those expenses.
Right. And you really don't, in today's world, you don't actually need that much infrastructure in New Zealand if you don't want it. That would be the other thing. Is it, again, I know that you're more of retirement, traditional retirement age. So for an American leaving the United States, there aren't really any significant tax savings. There aren't really any significant benefits of kind of going abroad from a financial perspective for an American. So the cool thing about that, you go abroad for lifestyle reasons, right? You go abroad because you enjoy New Zealand. You're not saving any money. There's no tax benefits. It's just, I like New Zealand. This is where I want to live, and I have enough money. This is what I want to do. So on that foundation, one of the cool things that Americans can do that other people can't do is you can keep the majority of your infrastructure in the United States. Now, you'll obviously have a New Zealand house and local car, and you'll have a New Zealand bank account. And You'll have some local infrastructure, but you don't need as much local infrastructure as, say, a Canadian or a Brit would. Because if you were British and you were moving to New Zealand, you would be saying, man, I am going to end my tax residency in the United Kingdom, and I'm going to be in New Zealand because, after all, I never have to pay capital gains taxes ever again because I'm going to live in New Zealand. And so you would have to move everything out, which is much more complex. For Americans, assuming that you're not going to renounce your citizenship, that doesn't apply. And so you can keep all of your infrastructure. And because Americans have the best credit card infrastructure in the world, and the best currency in the world, you can use your American credit cards to swipe for every expense you have in New Zealand. You can all of it can just work very easily, and you don't have to have much of any New Zealand infrastructure. And so I've spent years traveling, and I keep everything in the United States because it's completely immaterial. And so you don't really you could never actually have a New Zealand dollar account other than what you need to pay your lights and your water. And so you do need some other system for that, which I would propose those two that I described.
Well, yeah, and in fact, we do exactly what you say. So, we have a bunch of mileage credit cards and cashback credit cards all in the U.S., and that's what we use.
Right.
Don't have a New Zealand credit card. In fact, it's difficult without a credit score to get one. But yep. Yeah. So the infrastructure, brokerage accounts, everything else can just stay in the U.S., and it is very nice that way.
Yeah. I would suggest one more thing if you haven't. I have always loved having a Revolut card. Revolut is an online app, but for banking app, and they work really, really well because in their infrastructure, you can have a US dollar account and you can have multiple other currencies that you're saving in. And so you can transfer very quickly through them. You're going to have trouble doing this with hundreds of thousands of dollars, but for thousands and tens of thousands, you can go back and forth. And so you can pretty well time your currency transfer, or you can just spend off the card and you have very low currency conversion rates. And so I would suggest to you, I'm very happy with Revolut. I think they do a great job with that for banking, especially for international banking.
Interesting. I'll look at that. I had currently been using Wise for all of our currency transfers, but I'll look into Revolut.
Revolut is very popular in Europe. It's not so popular in the United States, but it is a really good. It's available to Americans, and it's a really good option. So congratulations. Please send me your address so I can forward you your Christmas card. Okay. All right. Thanks, Neil.
And two quick
go ahead.
things.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I just wanted to say one, the Life of Fred. I had heard your interview, when was it, last year, something like that? Mm-hmm. And so did buy, 10 or 15 of those books for my grandchildren and started reading those. And so I just wanted to say how much I enjoyed those.
Good.
And the second is very interesting talking to you here at one time speed, just because I am so used to listening to you or to all podcasts at 2 times speed. You had given me that suggestion on an old podcast. We discussed the fact that you listen at 2 times speed, and I suddenly started doing that and saved a lot of time in my life, or rather, really listened to a lot more podcasts than I used to.
The curse of my life. When people talk to me in person, they think I'm dumb because I talk so slow. Wonderful.
All right.
Very good. I'm going to come see you in New Zealand now that I know you're there. Thanks, Neil. Bye. All right. Sammy Sosa, welcome back. We are glad you are here. Welcome to the show. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. How can I serve you today?
All right. First thing, I purchased your Life of Fred financial choices, and I, as a late 20s man, loved it. It was really cool. And looking kind of like you, I've done pre-calc. I never mastered calculus, so I'm going to buy the Life of Fred calculus and try to master that late in life.
Absolutely.
First question, I know you've pivoted some from your businesses and started or purchased Life of Fred. I'm wondering if you're still going to do Radical Family Camp.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
It'll be this year. It'll be April 16 to April 19. I have reserved the facility. I reserved the entire camp, and so I expect within a couple of weeks to have the order page ready to go. We're working on the speakers, working on the agenda, but yes, I will. April 16 to April 19 in Seymour, Indiana.
Okay. Very cool.
Okay.
Another question. I have a 1-year-old. I've listened to you for probably since the very first episodes. I'm 29 now,
Wonderful.
but I have a 1-year-old. I like to think of myself as the young guy you talk to that has now progressed in his life and
Thank you.
is doing well. But I appreciate all that you've done. My wife and I, we desire to have many kids. Maybe 3 is the minimum, 7 the maximum, somewhere around there. We have a 13-month-old, and we love her. I'm wondering, I know your capacity grows as you have more children and they get older and they can help and they can work. But what does a day in the life of Joshua look like running businesses, moving, traveling, buying with 6 kids, homeschooling? My wife and I are trying to grasp what that would look like. I know it's chaos. I got older siblings. They have not 6 kids, but 2 and 3 kids going on 4. But how do you juggle all that? And what does the days and weeks look like?
I'm glad you asked that question. I will answer it directly, but let me take one sidestep. If you've been around this long, then you know that I have wrestled a lot with questions related to privacy. And a number of years ago, I used to be super open about, after everything in my life. And then I remember I got beat up a little bit by the internet, and I started to feel really scared because the internet attacked me and I didn't feel nice. And then I just kind of observed how fast things were going. And so a number of years ago, I took my children off. I deleted all the pictures, deleted all the social media, stopped doing that stuff. Basically, the only place that I continued sharing much about my life was here in an audio podcast. And this sounds so namby-pamby to say it, but I do that because it felt safe here. That this format can't go viral. That anybody who wants to attack me can listen and they can find out anything they have to do. But there's a significant cost associated with doing so, right? It's time. And so this format doesn't go viral, and that's a big problem from a business perspective, but it's a bonus from a speaking perspective, right? You and I are having this conversation here and buried 32 minutes and 31 seconds into a podcast. Nobody who doesn't like me or is interested in what I'm saying is ever going to hear these words. And since I don't put the transcripts out there, it's of course you can increasingly crawl anything now that everything is automatically transcribed with YouTube, so it can be found. And I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I kind of walked away from this stuff. But over the years, I have felt a burden. When I say the word, I mean that in a calling, right? A sense of obligation, sense of duty, that I should share more about my life. And I do that because I feel that because I believe that the great benefit of people in the current day, where we can access rather intimate details of somebody's life, that this is an important thing. And I get tired of all of my ideological opponents flashing their lifestyle out, whereas kind of careful and thoughtful people, we tend not to. And so, the guy who has nothing to lose and who's just engaging in perversion and hedonism and just whatever, he'll put on his camera and sit there and live stream all day long. Meanwhile, I don't do that because I don't want to expose my children. I don't want to expose my wife. I want to protect them. And yet then it causes people to not be able to envision it. It's like, well, if you have one child and I have 6, you can't really envision what that's going to be like, because there's nobody out there that does it. And that's why I'm a big fan of even the high-end people. I'm a big fan of ballerina farms and men and women who do that, because I believe that type of propaganda is important. And so I increasingly feel like I should be doing that. And we'll see. It will not be this year, but possibly in the future. I've basically decided to walk away from privacy out of a sense of duty, because I would rather be the anonymous, businessman who just makes money and no one ever knows anything about it. But that I don't believe that would accomplish what I should accomplish in life. So you're asking the question fits into something that I have spent a lot of years wrestling with, and I want to do. So I'll just describe it here, but frankly, in the future, I really need to turn cameras on and just share with you and do it honestly. That's the other thing, is that it needs to be done honestly. Not obviously, we're all going to package something. I don't want to when my children's room is a mess, I don't want to shine a camera at it and expose them. But there does need to be a level of honesty with it, and it's not all the bad just for sensationalism, and not purely the good for kind of building something up. People need to communicate honestly. So I don't know why I shared that, but that's just what it seems to me. So what does a day in the life look like? Well, the first thing is it's very different to have a house than it is to not have a house. And I would highly recommend you have a house. I have tried being homeless 3 times over the last decade, and I don't recommend it. I tried it because I thought it'd be super fun. I thought it'd be great because it just sounds really great. And man, the math side of me, when you can just swap out your house and just live on the road full time, the math side of me I think that's great. But the last time, I guess technically I was homeless a few months ago, but the last time I seriously did that was when we embarked in 2021, 2022. We embarked on the grand tour. We were going to go, my plan was to go to Europe for 6 months, go to Asia for 6 months, and to do the continual travel thing. And we had 4 children, I think. And, we'd had a miscarriage, and so everything had changed, and so we were just kind of, life was open, and I was like, let's go do it. So we went to Europe, and the plan was, again, I was going to take 6 months. I bought a car in Portugal. I was going to drive the car from Portugal to Turkey, and then I was going to fly on to Asia. And what put a kibosh on that trip was that I thought COVID was done, but Europe didn't think COVID was done. And that was when I've shared with you, I was in Spain, and I was having a miserable time. We'd been on the road for a month. I was not enjoying it. So we rented a house in France for a month, and that was a little bit better. And finally, I just looked at my wife and I was like, this stinks. We are not having fun. Let's be done with this. And through a variety of circumstances, we moved back to Florida, and yada, yada. It doesn't matter. So the point is that it's not fun to continually have to make fresh decisions and live homeless, especially with children, because the intensity is too high. Everything's you never get a break as a parent. So the wonderful thing about a house and a home that you will discover is that you get breaks, and you can tell your children go play, and you send them outside and they go play. And of course they come in every 20 minutes, but generally they go outside, and you know what's outside. They know what's outside. They can go and do things. And so I would recommend not being homeless and not traveling continually, because travel with children just puts you on all the time, and you never get a break. And that's bad for you, and it's really bad for mom. And so my wife has not enjoyed a lot of the travels because she's on the edge. She didn't enjoy the RV trip very much because while I saw it as a grand adventure, and I thought, man, this is going to be wonderful. I'm going to park in some beautiful park, and I'm going to go and work, and she's going to have this just spectacular place where she can go and play with the children and the things. Well, she's there with a 5-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old, and a tiny little house, basically. Doesn't know if there's a 100-foot cliff out the door, so you can't just kick the children out. And so she didn't enjoy it. That was why we cut our RV trip short. It was that she wasn't having a fun time. And the same thing with traveling is that she's kind of on the edge all the time. Where are the children, and who's kidnapped them, and things like that. And so when traveling as a father, I have to do a lot more work than when we're at home. So I would recommend having a home. Now you have a home, of course. So then what does it look like? Well, there's difference at 13 months, and it's a baby, although you have a mobile baby, but you should be, at this point, you probably are pretty well settled into a routine. And so what I would say is that every the thing that breaks my life is having another child, is that I will get things running smoothly with a wonderful kind of smooth structure, and then we go and have a baby. And the reason that that is disruptive is because she doesn't sleep well, right? Because the baby wakes up and feeds during the night. And for some reason, we've never figured out, most of our babies have generally been sick to various degrees. We've had one kind of picture perfect happy baby. The rest of them have all had some form of colic and GERD and various things that kind of makes them miserable. And we've taken every bit of advice we could find, and we've never been able to solve through. So basically, we just grit our teeth and muscle through. And you kind of muscle through the first 3 months, and I try to do it all so that she can take care of the baby and she can get rest and get naps, and we just kind of muscle through. And then after about 3 months, usually the baby's finishes his or her 4th trimester and things kind of settle in. So be aware of that. And if you have another child, expect that it'll break things. And it's interesting, is our youngest is, I guess, 4 months old? Something like 4 months old now. And it kind of feels like, all right, we're coming out of the woods. And the last few months have been brutal, absolutely brutal, because we moved halfway across the world with a bunch of children, had to collect stuff from the 4 corners of the planet, move into a new house, had no furniture, nothing at all, bought a business. The business closing was significantly delayed, had a bunch of problems, could bring it across the finish line. And it's been tough. Why am I saying all this? I guess so you asked for what the day is like. So generally speaking, I wake up fairly early. I haven't slept in years. And so I wake up fairly early. Ideally, I usually have quiet time in the morning. So I usually get an hour or so in the morning by myself before the children wake up. Currently, that doesn't work so much. I'm not sure why. I guess I'm going to bed too late. But I wake up, and then about half the time I take the baby so that my wife can go back to sleep. So over the years, basically the deal is she does the nighttime, I do the daytime, because somebody's got to get some sleep. And so if she's got to wake up and feed the baby in the night, then she's going to need a little extra sleep in the morning. And one of the luxuries that I have had over the years is being self-employed. If I had not been self-employed, I don't think there's a chance in the world that I would have 6 children. Because if I were, heading out the door at 7:00 in the morning to go to the office, and she were home all day by herself without substantial community help, I don't think that would work. Some moms do it, and they're amazing. I've always been able to kind of bend my business obligations and my work hours and things like that to help her more. But I usually would take the children. The youngest ones usually wake up early. Another weird thing that happens is that when your young children take naps, that's really great, because if they don't take naps, they're just total grouches, and so the naps are really good. The problem is that when you have young children that take naps, they don't sleep as long in the night as they otherwise would. And so I've got a almost 3-year-old, and so he takes naps, but then that means that he's usually the first one awake. So I snuggle with the baby, snuggle with him, read him books in the morning, and do that. In the past, I did all the breakfast stuff so that my wife could sleep. I've now been working really hard on my not doing anything. My vision is that I won't be doing any of this stuff anymore. My children are old enough to help. I fell pretty far behind my vision as far as training them with all of the chaos that I chose to bring into our lives. And so as I have sought to tame the chaos, my vision is that the children are able and doing most of the things. So I have put in place a pretty rigid structure of work. So we have a chore or basically a daily work chart, and who's going to do the dishes, who's going to set the table, who's going to be the kitchen helper. And I'm working hard to get my older children to be able to do the work. And so the younger ones, they help me do the cooking. If the older ones, I try to help them do the cooking. So generally, I have to generalize because the question is different today, but so we'll make breakfast. I'll usually hold a baby because our babies, again, whether it's a failing as a parent or what, I don't know, but our babies don't generally like to be put down. So I usually hold a baby and help the children make breakfast. We'll make breakfast. We do hot breakfasts. A lot of people don't. I've tried, and sometimes I've been tried hard to keep yogurt and fruit and whatnot as an option. But I grew up eating a cooked breakfast every day. Never in my life have I ever eaten cereal and milk. Just never done it. So that's kind of we tend to linger over breakfast, and I use breakfast as the structure. I use meals as a basic structure of our household. So one of the things that I appreciate about working from home is that I'm basically always home. And so I'm always there for breakfast. I'm always there for dinner. And I eat three to four out of, I guess I eat probably 5 to 6 lunches out of 7 per week with my family. And so those meal times for me is when a lot of our interaction happens. If I am going to do any instruction or spend time together, we kind of do it around the meal. So we have breakfast. I scurry out as quick as I can after breakfast, go grab a shower, put on clothes, go down stairs to the office. And then again, now with the older ones, they are doing well and they're pretty independent. So they do, the table clearing team clears the table, the dish cream does the dishes. They call for inspection. I have bejeweled my kitchen with checklists and basically just teaching my children to follow the checklists. So every step so they can stay focused. And we're making a lot of progress over the last couple of months. It's been a big improvements. And then, so I go to the office. I work from usually around 9 to noon, go upstairs for 20 minutes, have lunch, go down. My wife will do in the morning, she will do a morning time where she does all the children. She's using Biblioplan. She really likes the Biblioplan history books that she found at a homeschool conference. So she'll do a Biblioplan reading with them. And then after that, they disperse to independent work. So my older 2 will go and do independent work, and then the younger 2 will work with her, learn to read, etc. Lunch, this is too long. So anyway, lunch, come after lunch. We always do rest and reading time after lunch. And so that's really important for her. If she doesn't lie down and kind of get a rest, then she gets super cranky. And so daily rest and reading time is a necessity. So we keep all of our children having naps until age 6 because at age 6 they can start listening to audiobooks. And so we don't allow them to stop taking naps before that. Otherwise, my wife doesn't get her nap. And so we make sure that they keep on taking naps until they can basically listen to audiobooks and amuse themselves quietly for an hour, everyone alone. So the older ones will do more school from about 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And then by 3 o'clock, everyone's done. Everyone's up from naps. The children play. My wife usually does the dinner around 5 o'clock, 5:30. We eat at 6, put the children in bed by 7:30. And, that's it. It's not too exciting. It's not anything that abnormal. It's totally different, of course, when traveling, but that's more or less the basic structure. And I will say that, first of all, it's a lot. And so in the past, I have done all of the older children's schooling. And in the past, we have had help. I've had a housekeeper. My wife doesn't enjoy having people in her house. We've done a bunch of different things. Right now, we're kind of, again, on the edge where she needs more help, and I'm trying to figure out how to get it for her because the choices that I have made in the past years is that in some cases, I have gone and been Mr. Dad. I actually love being a father. Like if I were independently wealthy and I could just sit and I would make the best sourdough bread on this planet. There's a channel on social media called Cooking from Scratch with Bob. And I love watching Bob's stuff because basically Bob is me. Like I like doing domestic stuff. I like doing cooking and doing housework. It's just super satisfying to me. I enjoy it because it provides me a relief from what I consider to be hard work of working with my head. And so I've done a lot of that over the years, which has helped. I'm not sure if I should have. my wife has built skills, but I think I probably handicapped her in some cases where when she should have been skilling up, I was making her life easy. I've questioned myself a lot on that. But then as I'm right now, I'm trying to work hard on business. And so I'm intentionally kind of withdrawing from the household and I'm not doing all the Mr. Dad stuff. And so I'm working hard to get the older children useful, much more useful than they have been. And I've made a lot of progress in the last 6 months, a lot of progress needed still, but I've made a lot of progress in the last 6 months. So anyway, that's a day in the life. I don't know if I answered any questions, if I just rambled. What do you think? Is that kind of what you were asking about, or anything specific that you'd like to ask further about?
No, I appreciate that, Josh. And yeah, the stability is important with the home. We have a home. I'll say I am self-employed, work for a family business, small family business. So I do have a lot of flexibility there. But I also, as we're growing, I do need to put in more hours to help that grow. But hopefully that will elicit some more help we can get at home for different home tasks. And we plan on homeschooling our children. Obviously, 13 months is young, but I'm a guy who likes to think about far in the future,
Right.
and I always have. But I kind of feel like I have a little roadmap with you and listening to you and learning from you as you're, I don't know, 10 years out or so, or 12, something in the future.
Yeah.
So
What you're going to need.
I
So
appreciate.
let me just keep your mic on. What you're going to need is you're going to need community, and that is I have built good community, but I've also been frustrated by lack of community. And I would say, hear me loud and clear. This is going to sound so arrogant. It's not. So this is going to sound really arrogant. There are very few people who will ever be able to do what I have done. And most people will not be able to do it. I have significant ability and I'm really good at a lot of this stuff. So most people are not going to be able to do what I have done. I acknowledge that. So what's the answer? Well, we need better training systems, we need better community, and we need better systems, right? I had the good fortune to grow up with a mother who was a really good kind of domestic she really good domestic CEO. Anyway, she was really good at domestic stuff, right? She milled her own wheat and she baked her own bread, and I never ate we never ate that stuff. So I kind of naturally absorbed a lot of that stuff. I had chores, I cleaned bathrooms, I did all that stuff. So I'm really good at like the big family stuff because basically I'm the youngest of 7 children, and while my parents had given up on some of that stuff as they got older, they made it work. And so I have much higher capacity with even just domestic stuff than a lot of men. And so the problem that we're facing is that for men and for women, most of us are deeply untrained and most of our wives are deeply untrained. And so my wife was never trained in a lot of kind of the domestic skill. And so for her, the stuff that comes easily for me was never easy for her. And this is the problem that a lot of men and a lot of women are facing, is that we're really good with our accounting degrees and our wives have a great marketing degree, but they're just not very good wives and mothers. They're pretty overwhelmed by a lot of that stuff. And since we have so few children, they're just bearing it all themselves. And so what we have to do is we have to rebuild community. And like, so I've acknowledged, I try to be honest. I have acknowledged that my family is kind of right on the edge. We've been doing not the kind of homeschooling that we were doing a year ago. We've been doing just enough homeschooling. I still think it's good enough, but we're talking like, should we put the children in school? What is the solution? How do we build community? And, but the majority of people would have crashed and burned. Whereas potentially I might crash and burn. I don't think so. I think I'll be able to pull back from that. So the answer is not for you and me to be supermen and for our wives to be super wives. The answer is we have to live in an arrangement with other people, and we need to do that. And so we need to have young men and young women who are part of our lives. We need to have nieces and nephews who come in and help out. We need to have community where we move things around. And I kind of cut all that stuff off not by design, just because of the choices that I made. And so I recognize now the error, the what I wish. So what you can be doing right now is work really hard to build community where you're at, and then work really hard to build skills and do that with the vision. And that's what I wish I had spent more time doing.
That's good. I'll say my community right now is I'm the youngest of four. I have three older siblings that live within 20 minutes of me, with many nieces and nephews who love helping out. Oldest is 9. So, but also good group of church friends, mostly our age. But that's really good. Thank you, Joshua.
I've been meaning to get my friend Claire on the podcast, but she gave a talk at Radical Family Camp last year called Professional Motherhood. And one of the things, she is really good at this because she was a really bad mother. And then she decided that she was going to become a really good mother. And she's super intense about this. And she did it. And she is that way. I respect her enormously. She is one of the most competent women that I know. And this pathway this pathway of becoming a skilled professional mother, becoming a skilled professional father, is one of those things that we need more of, because the stuff is relatively easy. It's just rather foreign. I was thinking about it this morning because I'm going to do a podcast, should be out in the next week or two, but on like having more children and should you respect somebody more who has more children? My answer was going to be yes, but I'll explain why, because I've spent 20 years thinking about this question. And sorry, I just lost my train of thought. I guess that these skills are I lost my train of thought. Just that embracing it and helping and doing it with a vision of saying, hey, I got to get better now. I got to build a community now is the key. Because otherwise you're going to get to 3 children, and 3 is going to be the worst, right? Because you're going to wind up with a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and everything is bad, right? Everything is frustrating. And that's the time where you really need those skills. And so that's the time where you need to make sure that you have the room in your budget to hire a housekeeper. You're going to need to have a nanny who comes a couple of hours a day so that your wife gets a break. You need a community. You need the stuff. And so either you can pay for it or you live in a community where it's available. And sorry, I'm ranting. And like, we have to build this. And what is happening is that I'm facing and you're facing hollowed out communities where if there are, on the street where I live, there are 2 families out of 20 that have children. And of course, you never see their children. You never see their families. They're completely isolated. I don't know who's a stay-at-home mom and who's not. Like, it's just, there's no community. And so it makes, that's one of the reasons, that's one of the things that is holding people back. That's one of the reasons why the average American woman has 1 fewer child than she wants to have. It's just because it's not possible. And so either you're a highly capable person and you just kind of gut your teeth and barrel through, which is pretty much what I do. I just basically say, I reject your reality and substitute my own, and I'll live how I want and do what I want. And much of the time it works. Sometimes it crashes and burns, but a lot of the time it works. But that's not going to do it for most people. And so we have to figure out how to rebuild these kinds of communities where the resources are available and to where you're not alone. And I guess I'm just feeling that pretty keenly because I'm more alone than I've been in a long time. And I've also taken on more than I've done in a long time. And so as I work to solve my problems, I am acutely aware that these are the things that are lacking. But if I can solve my problems for me, I can solve my problems for you, and we can solve them together, we can build things differently for our children. And that's what I see that we need to do, because our current culture is not doing it. Anyway, I'm ranting. I'm done. Anything else?
I agree with you there. I appreciate it, Joshua. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you for being here. All right. We had one more question. We had one listener drop off, and that's okay. And one more question from JG. I missed the beta version of your retirement course. Do you plan to roll it out still? Let me answer the question, JG. I am trying to roll everything out. I want everything to be out. So yes, I intend to do it. I'm preempting the podcast for next week, but here's the pre-file, the preview. The thing with the courses and the things like that is that I really love to teach, but I'm an idea man. I'm not a, I like the ideas. I don't enjoy the flash. I've never been attracted to the flash. And so over the years, as I've kind of built courses, I've done them, but I've always focused on the ideas and I've never made them flashy. And I've often felt like I was just living in this world where none of my stuff is good because it doesn't look good. And I've had enough students say, "Hey, Joshua, your stuff's been really helpful," that the concepts were good, but then I just like, but it looks like crap. And I've never been proud of anything that I have made with Radical Personal Finance. I've been proud of the ideas. I've never been proud of the rest of it. My website stinks. The courses, were ugly. Nothing worked. And so over the years, I had all these ambitions of like, oh, I'm going to make this stuff beautiful. I'm going to hire a studio and blah, blah, blah. You don't need the sob story. It's just, I was never happy with it. And so then because I was never proud of it, I never promoted it. And so I would always have students that would come through and they would take the stuff and I felt like I did a good job for them. But then I would never want to promote my stuff because I was just ashamed of how stupid it looked. So a number of years ago, I took everything off the market and I said, well, that's it. I'm just going to redo all this stuff. And then I just never could get it done. And that's also made me super ashamed because then I thought, I'm just incompetent. Like, why can't I not get this done? But the huge nature of it was too big. I couldn't get it done. And so this was where last year I said, I'm done. Like, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired of being incompetent. I want to do something I'm proud of. Why do I have to, I can't do it. So I decided to give it one last crack. And that was where RPF Academy came from. And I said, there's no way I can get any of this stuff to exist if I'm not forced to do it. But what I can do is I can do it if I'm forced to do it with an audience. So I started RPF Academy, and that was really good. It has been really good. And so for this entire last year, I have been delivering I said, I'm going to put everything in one course. I'm going to give people a great deal, but I'm going to charge a price enough that'll make me excited to do it. And I'm going to do it every Saturday. I'm going to do it once a week and get it done. So that's what I've been doing for the last year. I'm about 2 to 3 months behind my hoped for schedule. I had planned to have it done before the end of last year. I had a baby, so I took 3 weeks off when we had a baby. I started early, but my scope, as always, has been too big. And so figuring out what is important to teach and what's not important to teach it basically buries me, because you can, especially in the world where now I could gin up some like big, like what is important? How do you know what's important? Those decisions is what I find brutally difficult, as answering those questions. If I'm going to present for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, how do I choose the scope? I'm not trying to present everything I could find on the internet and every fact. I'm trying to choose the most important things, but what's necessary. It's really difficult. So I have been laboring all year to get that done. Moving, having a baby, buying businesses and whatnot interrupted that. So I'm running a couple months behind on that, which makes me feel ashamed because I would like to not be late, but that's the reality. I'm late. But I've done it every week and consistently, and I'm almost done with that. The idea behind that is once the ideas are all done, the hard part is creating the format. And then I can take those videos, I can chop them up into individual courses, or I can provide access to them in the future. And so in a perfect world, if I were as competent as I wish I were, then it would have been ready to go again this past December. That was the plan. I failed on that, but I still intend to finish. It'll still be finished. It's just not on the New Year's thing. So in the future, I will have these things done. So they are available. So if you want to purchase the retirement course, it's all there. If you want to purchase access to the academy, it's all there. Is that for this last year and 2 months so far, last 14 months, I have been systematically building a clear course structure that I'm I'm pretty happy with. I'm happy with most of it. About 10% of it that I want to trim and readjust. I've had to go back and delete a few and adjust a few, but I'm happy with about 90% of it, that it will provide kind of that basic structure. And so the answer is yes, but I'm walking around saying dates because I don't seem to be very good at predicting how long things take. But I am determined, and this is where, again, I'll explain this in a standalone podcast for those who don't listen to the Q&A shows, but I'm not going to quit Radical Personal Finance until I'm proud of it. And I haven't been proud of it in a very long time because it seems like everyone's better than me and everyone's flashier than me. And I'm not asking for pity. I've met amazing people and whatnot. I'm proud of some aspects of what I've done, but I'm not going to stop until I'm proud of it. And so part of being proud of it means having a set of courses that look good, that have good content, that solve problems for you in a straightforward way, and that I can promote fully. And I don't know why psychologically that's hard for me. I don't know why it's hard for me to promote my own things. You would think that it would be easy to promote your own stuff, but I tend to struggle with that. It's a lot easier for me to promote Life of Fred with all of its good things and warts than it is to promote my own stuff. I don't know why. I admire people who could just say, man, you should just pay me tons of money for my stuff, but it's always been hard for me. So I'm building it. I'm getting there. I'm looking at my calendar, and I'm not going to say a date because I've missed a lot of them. Of my own goals and ambitions just due to having too many things on my plate. But the answer is yes, it will be back. And so it'll be RPF Academy. And if you just want the retirement course, it'll be there. But I'm just trying to upgrade it to the bigger version. So if you want the business case, I will explain the business case in that future episode. You'll see that titled, Should I Quit Radical Personal Finance? And I'll explain it forthrightly. Anyway, thank you all for listening. Been great talking with you. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back with you soon.